my name is Kenzie and welcome to a watercolor tutorial, and today we're going to be painting these flamingos. This is a perfect painting for anniversaries, if you want to create some cards for Valentine's or Mother's Day. We have the heart shape in the middle here, and it's just fun to kind of play around with different shades of pink for your painting. So let's get started. So these are the brushes that I like to use. I like to use the size 12, 8, and 4 brushes. They are round tip. These are the silver black velvet brushes. And then this is my palette that I got off of Amazon, and then these are the Winsor Newton colors that I have in my palette. Right here I also have a tapping cloth that I like to just have on hand. I have 2 different types of water. I have one for my cool colors and one for my warm colors. Also see here that I have taped my pictures. I usually will always use a backdrop, just helps keep the paint off my table, and it's also really easy just to take off and remove if I have to work on another project. Okay, so this cute flamingo has a cute little heart shaped. It would make for an adorable Valentine's card. So I'm mixing up here 2 different types of colors. I'm just gonna break up that real quick. I'm gonna be mixing up a nice pink with my rose color that I have from Winsor & Newton. I'm going to mix up a little bit of a peachy color too, because I feel like that would look really nice with our flamingo. So I just mixed in some rose, I mixed in some cadmium red and cadmium yellow. So what I'm going to do now, actually I'm going to add a little bit of yellow into this one, is I am going to basically come around and fill in my flamingo's body. I'm going to work one flamingo at a time. I'm going to stop around there. I'm going to grab a different paintbrush. I'm going to bring in a little bit more of a pigmented color right here. And I'm going to touch different points while it's still wet. So using that wet on wet technique. And you'll see that it just starts to blend and bleed really nicely. I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush. So I just have a damp brush. And I'm going to use a nice scooping effect down the middle and scoop up any extra color. Coming around again while it's still wet. Getting a nice bleed here. Scooping up any extra color that's not blending nicely. Okay, I'm going to continue all the way around. All right, so this is the fun part right here where we get to fill in some of the feathers for this flamingo. I'm going to be leaving some negative space right here. You'll see I'm not touching it. I'm going to come in again, same thing with a more pigmented color while it's still wet to have it spread and to bleed. If you're finding yours isn't spreading as much like mine, you can just use a damp brush with just water on it, and you can just make it spread with just water. I'm going to come around. Again, when I'm using this darker color, I'm making sure that I'm letting that first nice soft pink that I had down shine through. I'm not completely covering it. And I'm going to let this dry before I add any other layers to it. So I'm going to come along and do my other side of my flamingo. We went on vacation last winter actually, and I took my daughter to the zoo, and ever since then she has an obsession with flamingos. So this painting is definitely inspired by my daughter's love of flamingos. All right, so same thing, coming around to this area, working really quickly before our painting dries, touching different spots just to add some depth and dimension to it while it's still wet. Blending it out with just a brush if it's not really moving that well. Come into the center. Okay. And continue with my flamingo all the way around. Making sure when I get to the back part of the flamingo, I'm leaving lots of negative space for the feathers. All right, so right underneath this area right here where my sketch is, this part is going to be darker than the rest of it. This is for underneath the wing. So right under here, I want it to be darker. And then under here, I didn't put the line for under here, but you can just freehand a little loose triangle right in there. So that's more of the body right here versus the wings. And then I can come in and just keep layering now for my flamingo some different feather shapes. What I want to do to help kind of make this feel a little bit more complete, I'm going to come in here with my peachy color that I've made. And I'm going to fill in the beak area. I'm going to fill in this part with this nice peachy color that I have. The damp brush, lift up different spots, come in, repeat on the other side. And I'm not going to touch this bottom part right down here. It's going to be black, but I am going to leave the top. While it's still wet, I can come in and just add different tones of like pinks to the beak. I can also add little bits of blue to add just a little bit of nice shadow work in here. For the eye, add a little bit of that blue. Versus black, it just won't be as dark and pigmented, which is nice. I don't want to go too dark with my eyes and my features, otherwise it might just look a little wonky. Okay, I can come in now with my black and fill in the beak. Okay, and again, just continuing down, rotating, and just filling in some of the texture for the feathers. I'm using the very tip of my brush right now, just doing some really nice light lines, just mimicking what I think would be some nice feather textures coming along my sides here, adding some love and some texture, some streaks using the side of my brush. And I'm mixing in a bit of my rose color into my peachy color. I'm going to repeat here on the other side. So over here, using the very tip of my brush. And as I get towards my middle, I'm applying a little bit more pressure, more or less like the side of my brush. And I can just keep repeating until I feel happy with the colors that I have, with the textures that I have. Can even come in under my beak and add some love with the eyes. around with my different shades of pink here, rotating from using the side of my brush to the tip of my brush. That'll help just give me the different types of layers that I need here. Okay, so now to continue to do the legs, down this part, come and just shadow underneath some spots, adding a little bit of depth. And I used a brown color. Coming along now and doing the other leg. Picking up my brown. Adding some depth to my knee and right underneath the body. Coming into my flipper a bit. Okay, coming along and doing my other side. So using that nice peachy color that I had. Okay, using more of a brown for the knee area, underneath my flamingo's body, and the little flipper, just to add some depth at different points. And I can also add a bit of blue underneath this area right here to give us a nice shadow. That body part, we can even bring in some shadows and blues into the tail or the wing area in the back. You can even bring in a little bit of blue into the legs just to kind of make certain areas stand out. Okay, there we have it. This is a pretty straightforward and easy watercolor. It's all just about the layering and making sure that when we're doing the feather part that we're just kind of taking our time, blending over it. And if you're finding that your colors aren't really layering on top, you want to make sure that you're letting each layer dry. So for example, if I came in right away with my light pink and then I tried to put over top my dark pink and you just found that it just wasn't making the shapes, you just got to wait until that first layer has dried through. So I was able to get lots of depth here because I let my layers dry and shine through, kind of jump between one bird to the other bird just to, you know, make that, just to give me enough time to let that all dry. I am going to come in before I end and add a little bit more depth to my beak. A bit more darkness. Maybe to the eye, just add a little bit more depth. Okay, and there we have it, my flamingos in love.